It's kind of a shock when everything starts to click. I mean, it's not at the same time, but you really do have to kind of take a second to slow down and look at what's changing in front of you because you're not the same trader that you came into this as. You are more damaged, you're more experienced, you're more tuned, if you will. Today I made 7 grand, actually about 8,000. So 5,000 on one top step account, 2,800 on my top one account. Tomorrow I'll be pulling out 4,500 from one of the top step accounts, and it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because it's not like this stuff happens in a way that you'd imagine or just a very clear path. There will be a lot of progress made and then back steps made where it's not a linear thing. This year has been one of the hardest trading years I've ever been through. And it's not because of market conditions. It's really just because of me not really able to keep up with what the market was doing and ultimately find a way to profit more than I was losing. It was a hard time. For the first time in many years, I almost quit. I wanted to. I wanted to be done with this because I couldn't figure out what was going on and I couldn't see a way through, which is crazy for me to say because that's not who I am. I'm not someone who just walks away from stuff or is unwilling to stick it out, but that's the reality. And it just got to a point where I felt like my back was against the wall where I genuinely had to decide, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep doing this or am I going to really give this a shot? And it was at that time, about a few weeks ago, where I said, you know what? Let's take inventory. Let's clear the board and let's focus on what we can do right. So, one thing I did was having burned through so many accounts this year, I said, I'm just going to liquidate my long term holdings. I'm going to just sell everything I have because if I can do that and I can bet on myself that I will be able to figure this out, I could sure, yeah, start a cash account with that. Or I could keep trying what I'm doing with this and run up this prop firm thing. And ultimately, that's what I decided to do. I realized that I was not going to allow myself to have the excuse of saying, well, I don't have the resources because I do. I put all my chips on the table. I said, you know what? Let's do this. And miraculously, in my darkest hour, in the time where I felt nothing could have made a difference, suddenly a small light started to shine through. And I started to get some momentum. And it's been going smooth since. For once in a long while, it's been going smooth. And I just want to tell you, it doesn't take much for that mood to flip for you to realize and remember who you are and that whatever you're going through isn't permanent. But when it does come and when it does happen, you can't be too surprised. Though unfamiliar at the time, right? It's been gone for a minute. When it comes back, it's not surprising because you go and say, you know what? Yeah, this is who I am. And maybe this isn't who I've been lately. Maybe my trading hasn't been as good as it could have been. But by getting back to this point, it's a step in the right direction. It's really weird looking back at this because this was one of the darkest periods of my time. Just in my trading journey, this was a dark period of that time. And when you're going through it, you don't realize the value of it. You don't realize the human characteristics, the internal flaws, right? That you have, the things that make you specifically and uniquely you, but the things that also make you a bad trader. I realized there was a reason that I needed to lose as hard as I did and as much as I did and as frequent as I did. It's because I needed to desensitize myself to that. I needed to realize that what my biggest fear might have been could not crush me. And I sit here on the other side of it saying it was worth it because I no longer worry about position size. I no longer stress about that. I know what I'm looking for and I take the shots when they're presented. It takes me back to my beginnings when I started trading. I really had to think about how I was going to do it, right? It was so hard in the beginning. And in a similar way, this year felt very much like that. I often told people I felt like I was a beginner again, not because I didn't know how to trade, but because I was making mistakes that I knew better than to make. But it's almost like I had to break myself down completely to be able to have a chance at building something bigger and ultimately more long lasting. All you need is one good run, and then you start to remember who you are. And it's from that you can build a foundation on. I have to remind myself because it's been such a struggle that it's not supposed to be. Because as I sit here right now at 9:03 a.m. on the West Coast, I've been done trading. I have $100 for tomorrow to make on this account if I want to, right? And then I'm pulling out a max payout. And then I have more payouts brewing on other accounts. So to go from being completely lost, literally feeling hopeless, to starting to establish sense of self, starting to develop those good consecutive days, get some wins on the board. I hope you can see how easy it is to genuinely go from feeling like you're going to fail to 20 grand a month, to 30 grand a month, to whatever that number is times the amount of leverage that you have. Because it's not a matter of grinding, it's an exponential game. It is the law of attraction in its truest form. There is nothing that changed between the trades where I'm making $200 or making $7,000 on. It's the same process, it's the same mindset, it's the same emotion that went into it. The only difference is the strategic sizing. That's the only thing that changed, but it was not effort. It was opportunity. It was being prepared at the given opportunity. So if you're going through it, like I know a lot of you will, and like I was, just know there's a point to it. There is something that you will be able to glean from that period through that darkness where you don't think you have it figured out, where you feel like you're failing. Typically, if you feel like you're failing, it's because you're actually giving it your all. You're giving it your best shot and you're not happy with your results. But that doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're not capable because I mean, honestly, how different am I from a couple weeks ago? I'm still me. The only difference that's changed is I'm actually now on the timeline where I am getting what I want. I had to go through that darkness though to understand that whatever you make can easily be taken from you in the moment that you think it can't be. You have to experience that loss to have that appreciation, that gratitude, and that reverence and respect for what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, I can still think back to one of the first pieces of advice I got about trading. It's that no matter how much you make, you can still lose it all. And you have to be okay with that. And you have to understand the risk there. So your struggle will ultimately be your story. It's not a matter of doing this perfectly, getting it figured out in a couple months. You don't need to. You already know what to do, but the chance of you doing everything proper the first time is very low. The reality is you're going to make the mistakes that align with the lesson that you need to learn. And you will do that over and over and over anytime you need a reminder on what you need to learn. It's a simple game, but it's ultimately one of the hardest pursuits that anybody could go through is that of personal development. And that's what we get through trading. You think you're trading the chart, but really you're just trading your emotion. I could sit here and explain to you the trade that I took yesterday. I'm shorting above prior day high, following the Trump tariff and targeting the weekly open or prior day low. But chances are, if you're not in the right headspace to trade, you're going to fumble that opportunity. It doesn't matter if it falls straight down. And conversely, if you are extremely dialed in, it doesn't matter what type of opportunity comes your way because you'll be able to make do with it. whether you're able to profit from it, whether you're able to be more patient with it, you will ultimately make more out of what you got when your head is in the right space. If a younger version of me, take it back a couple years ago, let's just say 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, if I were to sit there in front of him and tell him, hey man, you're gonna make $7,000 on a morning, I don't really know what his reaction would be. I'm sure he would believe me, but I don't think he would believe me when I say it's not all that it's chalked up to be. It makes no real difference because you're still you. Nothing changes besides the stuff that you can buy or the things that you can afford. You're still you. And it's always going to be that way. It doesn't matter if it's $7,000 or $70,000 or even $700,000. What's the difference? It's just money at the end of the day. I don't know if it's, I don't know when this will happen for you, but you will ultimately at one point be confronted with that moment where it is make or break, where you're asked to put all your chips on the table. And I think it's the vigor and the relentlessness that you approach something like that with that will define your ability to make it. Instead of feeling hopeless, even after blowing so many accounts, even after being on just the biggest losing streak and just this inability to get any traction, instead of choosing to be like, I have no other options, I created an option. I sold everything. I liquidated everything I had. And that gave me a little bit of time. So all I needed was time. So really make sure that you're in the driver's seat when you have to approach something like that because you have to be bold to make a difference. And at the end of the day, this is your life that you're playing for. Till next time.